around us are becoming poor every day. Your friends and family, the people you love, if you're not telling them about Bitcoin, why?
Even though it's not related to sex, it just gives you joy and pleasure.
If you go around and ask 100 people anything about Bitcoin, and you'll realize that we are sober. They're actually spamming our network right now.
How is this different from slavery?
It's not. We actually live in an open air prison, right? We're still slaves. The only chains that we wear now are...
What drove you to be so into Bitcoin that you even tell other people on social platforms about it?
Yeah, not even just social platforms. I try and naturally bring up Bitcoin organically and even in person-to-person interactions.
Yeah.
I've always tended to kind of be the person in my group or my family that seeks out what's good and what could help. And I've spent, I can, if I could count, it's probably a couple hundred hours listening to podcasts, or even reading books. Like I've read the Bitcoin Standard, most books, the top 10. I've put them in my audiobook list, and I usually generally listen to books because I have a 1 hour ride to work, so it's perfect. And I just see Bitcoin as the ark. It is the boat that is going to take us out of the chaos that we're all in right now. And to me, it seems like nobody is really paying attention. Nobody notices. They're all short time frame people, and they're out there spending and whatnot. So I just have something in my soul that I find it just urges me and is always pushing me to help people. even people that resist me. Like I have an aunt that is like, she's wealthy, and she wants nothing to do with Bitcoin, and she's told me that, and I still, even this morning, I text her. I text her the commercial you just posted on Twitter, the DiGiorno, the commercial for the Bit ETF.
Yeah, the Bitcoin spot ETF from
Yeah,
Bitwise. It is. It's going
Bitwise.
crazy wild.
Yeah, I sent that right to her. I said, "Hey, look, it's becoming kind of big," and she's. I guarantee she's going to reject it. She's going to say something, but there's something inside me that just needs to try and help people. I wish I could pinpoint it, and sometimes I wish I could actually turn it down, because it kind of gets in the way of regular, like, just talking to people. I find like I'm always thinking, how can I slide Bitcoin into this conversation? And maybe I need to learn. I'm trying to learn how to dial that back, figure
Yeah.
out the right balance.
You also made a presentation on what is Bitcoin for normies. What you wrote me, I think. What
Yeah.
is that from your learnings, talking to everybody and trying to orange pill them? What were your What are your biggest learnings from that? What can you give? What's the main message you want to give newbies for Bitcoin?
I try, like, when I first start talking to people, it's a PDF format, and I want to go around locally and have seminars, and just an hour long kind of seminar. And the PDF that I create it's what is Bitcoin, and it quickly, within 16 pages, I'm trying to just get people's minds unconditioned, start breaking the bondage that they're under of this fiat system, and how they think there's no alternative. Like these people out here in Normie land, they don't even realize that there is an alternate system that they can opt into, and it's free. So it's I'm trying to just get people's wheels spinning, because if I ask 100 people, I bet you maybe 5 of them even have heard of Bitcoin, and any of them, the 5 that have heard, it's all price action stuff. It's like, oh, it's gonna collapse, it's gonna go up, it's gonna collapse. But price action is one of the things that I like to look at least. Like I check the price quite a bit, but that's just my OCD-ness. But to me, the Bitcoin is more of a, like I said, like it's the arc that we all need to get onto to get us out of this mess, right? A decentralized ledger that anybody can partake in. Some of us in this, I'm in a first world country. I'm in Canada, so I'm not subjected to some of these things that third world countries go through, and I try and open people's eyes to that. That we're very fortunate that we can have a bank account, that our currency is inflating at like Last few years have been pretty rough. But there's countries out there that it's inflating at like 200% a year. Lebanon, they woke up one morning and the bank literally emailed them and told them that their money was going to get cut in half. If you had spent your whole life saving $100,000, you wake up January 2nd and your $100,000 was 50,000, and there was nothing you could do about it. Could you imagine being part of that? Like, I try and emulate and think about how that would feel, and that's, I think, maybe the fuel I use, because I know it's coming here. It is. It's just a slower melting iceberg, right? They want to keep the mass, the USA, Canada. They want to keep them a little more comfortable. It's like the analogy of the frog in the pot. You can put a frog in a pot on the stove, and if you just turn the temperature up just enough, he'll stay there. And you can just slowly crank it up and up and up and up until the frog actually dies. It boils. And it never realized it was getting boiled. It never jumped out of the pot. And this is true. You can actually do this. And that, to me, is what's going on around us today. I know you're in Europe. I'm in Canada and US, but so we're pretty fortunate. We're the top first world countries that aren't experiencing inflation at a hyper level.
And where did your journey started? Like you mentioned that they're like the frog in the hot water. Why did you jump out of it?
You know what? I'm a Christian, and I do believe in God, and I do believe God puts people in our lives for a reason. And I was blessed, and I tell this man, I still see him at work. I was fortunate to work beside somebody that was into crypto in 2016 and 2017. He was into more. He is a Bitcoiner, but he does go off the rails into the altcoins, and he was big on Ethereum in 2017. And that's where my journey started, was with Ethereum at the top of 2017. And I just put a little bit of money into it. Knew nothing about it. It was just my friend at work told me this isn't the next big thing, so put money into it. And fortunately, right after that, it had collapsed. So my one Ethereum at $1,200 went down to like $200. I sold it, didn't really care until the bull. But this man, he's blessed. He understands the financial system, and he was able to bestow his knowledge upon me for the year or two we worked together. So that's who I owe it to. Uh, that's how I started my journey, and from there I've branched off on my own. I've went Bitcoin only. I realized that everything else, even Ethereum, the number two asset in the world, the next one down is a scam, right? You have your 70% pre-mine, you have your centralized nodes that run on Amazon servers, right? Like there's so many attack vectors with Ethereum. Nobody knows the cap. So right then and there, even just the next one down to me is a scam. So I'm Bitcoin only.
That's amazing. So you started with Ethereum, went on with Bitcoin only because you actually did the research, you did the homework, you did the studying, and you also mentioned that you're a Christian and you also work with, I think, a church to set them up with Bitcoin
Uh,
donations, you said.
yeah.
I'm amazed that inside of the Bitcoin community, there's actually a really strong and connected Christian community.
Yes.
And I think Robert Breedlove and other people are doing great work on that. Um, what do you think is the main connection between Christians and Bitcoin, and where's this strong correlation, a strong value comparison also coming from?
I If I could put it down to one word, I would think it would be faith. Because early on in your Christianity, along with early on in your Bitcoin career, you have to have faith. Even to this point, I've spent 2 to 3, 400 hours like listening to podcasts, setting up miners, running a node, and I have barely begun to scratch the surface of Bitcoin. So I couldn't tell you with 100% certainty what Bitcoin is, what it does, or even how to explain it. I'm just to the point where I'm starting to understand UTXO management, and doing interactions through my own node, and being able to validate transactions. And I've put in hundreds of hours. I couldn't imagine somebody that's done zero research, and a person like me is coming at them and trying to download all this in 2.2. It's the same as Christianity. It is a faith-based system at the beginning, right? Faith is what you need to step off the ledge. And that's what you need to do with Christianity and Bitcoin. You have to take that first initial step and just trust, right? And I assure you, both of them, Christianity and Bitcoin, are going to save you. All right. They both are real, and they both are exactly what is promised in the white paper and in the Bible.
If is Satoshi the god of Bitcoin?
I would say so. I would say Satoshi, it almost, they kind of have similar kind of upbringings as it's a miracle kind of like Satoshi backed off. We don't know where he went. We know his million coins are sitting there. You can look at them, and he hasn't touched them, right? So you can imagine the type of man that would it would take to sit there and see all that money and not touch it. And I believe Jesus was the same. Like he wasn't about money, and I don't think Satoshi is either. They both came to try and heal and make and fix. So yeah, that's a good correlation, good
It's a,
comparison.
it's a crazy thing to think about. If you have a person, maybe it's just one person, maybe it's more persons, to have 1 million Bitcoin, seeing the value of that, the purchasing power of that 1 million Bitcoin from nothing, because at some point Bitcoin was worth, from purchasing power standpoint, worth nothing, to
Yeah.
worth millions, billions, and so much more. And what's your, do you have a theory around Satoshi? Do you have some, why did he not do it? Did he went under? Did he throw away the keys to his Bitcoins?
Well,
Did he
it's
die?
I have tried to go down that like historical path of Bitcoin. Like I said earlier in the podcast, like there's so many avenues you can go down. And it just depends on, sometimes I feel like learning about mining, and sometimes I want to learn more about Satoshi. Sometimes I want to learn more about exchanges, nodes. But yeah, I did go down that path with Satoshi, and it's very murky, some of the waters, and there's characters that pop up you didn't even realize were there, like Nick Szabo and Hal Finney. To me, I think Hal Finney had his fingers in Bitcoin the most, whether it was him or not. It, it definitely, because we know of the communications between Hal and Satoshi, that he was in direct contact with him. Whether he was setting us up to think it wasn't him, he could easily do that. But if I had to pick, I would think it was Hal Finney.
I just had a crazy thought in my mind. We are now thinking in 2000, 1999, and stuff like that, and before and after, with also with the Christianity. And could the Bitcoin creation also be a new creation of a time zone, of an era where we are like, it was in 1,000 years, it is like before and after the Bitcoin
Hmm.
creation, because Bitcoin is kind of a time chain, and you
Yeah.
can even more accurately tell the time with that. I know there's a big time chain crowd out there. I'm right now not that big into that. Did you went down that rabbit hole at some point?
Yeah, like I really think the creation of Bitcoin was divine in itself. It was like a gift to humanity. And that's why we as Bitcoiners really need to try and orange pill at least one person a day. At least try and bring it up in the conversation organically. Even for me, I have a phone I tap, and I have a Visa through ShakePay, and I get 1% Bitcoin back. And I always, when I tap it, I always tell the cashier, "Oh, thanks for the free Bitcoin." And I hope that is just like fishing, right? It's a lure you throw out there, and sometimes the fish bites, and sometimes it doesn't. But you have to have your lure in the water to catch somebody, and that's the only way this is going to work, is we start bringing people in and teaching them, right? Because like we said, we both know it is a daunting task to even understand Bitcoin at a first principles level, like to even understand, to teach people that the money is broken, that the money they're using is being printed to infinity. Real estate's going through the roof, and we know through Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow, that society is deflationary, and you can see that in the price of TVs right here. It, TVs have dropped in price. Like, I was in Walmart yesterday, and I could buy a 70-inch TV for $500. 10 years ago, that same TV would have cost me $10,000. How have TVs dropped in value while everything else around us has gone up in value? Well, you learn that society is deflationary. If the government keeps its fingers out of it and stops manipulating and picking winners and losers, and causing market distortion, that naturally over our lives prices should fall. We should be, as people, working less and saving more, but we're not. We're all on this melting iceberg, and most people don't even realize it. So I think as Bitcoiners, it's very important that we try and teach people and bring as many on as possible. It's something that should be ingrained in every Bitcoiner, is just try and help. Be a person that helps.
Is that the mission of every platform?
Pardon me?
Is the bringing more Bitcoiner in the mission of everyone that holds Bitcoin? I called it blab.
Hmm. Each person's an individual. Like, I have a cousin that Bitcoins, and he's very introverted and has a hard time communicating with people. So for him, I try and get him out of his comfort zone, and like I said, with my seminar, I've texted him and told him multiple times that he's going to be sitting there beside me in class, and he's like, "No way, can't do it, can't talk in public." I'm like, "Well, neither can I." But the fact of the matter is, the people around us are becoming poor every day. Your friends and family, the people you love, if you're not telling them about Bitcoin, why? Why? They're being drowned in. Like, you need to, like, beat the dead horse until people get it. That's my opinion. For him, it's not so much. He's introverted, so I think there's only a few of us in the community that can stand up and speak well and be leaders. And if you are one of those people, like yourself, Robin, I think we do owe it to society in general to try and help. Yeah, for sure.
That's
But I wouldn't put any pressure on somebody. Like, I wouldn't say you should be doing it. No, because that might be the difference between someone staying or someone going, is feeling pressured or forced to, that this is an aspect of Bitcoin. Like, I'm not one of those people on Twitter that's like, oh, gotta eat meat, or gotta use a cast iron pan. To me, it's like, cook with what you got, try and eat healthy, live a good life, and live and let live. Try not to, like, force other people to live the way you think they should.
Yeah, my way of telling people of Bitcoin also changed actually the last 3, 4 years a lot. In the beginning, I was like, you have to buy this, you do have to do it. And now I also, like, I'm well known in everywhere where I go that I'm the Bitcoin guy. I post a lot on social media. I'm with my face there, I have my real name there. Everybody who knows me knows I'm the Bitcoin guy. This makes stuff easier because interested people in Bitcoin come up to me because they know I'm that Bitcoin guy.
Perfect.
And what I found is amazing that if you let them have their space and give them the right information at the right time, they're going on their
Yes.
Bitcoin path themselves. Like,
Yeah.
my best friends are now all in Bitcoin. Like, not not even going in Bitcoin, they're like all in Bitcoin. They are really deep into it. And I
Good.
never pushed them. I just was there for them in helping them and pointing them to books, to articles, to videos, to everything they would need to get it. But I never was like, it's that way and that way only. I also have some friends that are against it. Some friends, they read the Bitcoin standard and say, no, it's bullshit. And I'm like, okay, let's meet in 1 year again and let's discuss it. Like, it's okay if you don't get it. It's
Yeah.
like everybody has his own time of understanding Bitcoin.
Ignorance is bliss. I've thought in the last couple days, actually, I've had the thought pop in my head of like, what it would be like to go back pre-Bitcoin, pre knowing that fiat was a scam, and just to live in that ignorance. It'd be nice because once you lift the veil, there's no going back, right? That once you realize money is a scam, and you're like, oh my gosh, what else? And it just, you keep going and going and going. And that is why I love Bitcoin, is because there's no end to it. There's literally, you could spend thousands of hours studying, and there's no end to it. And people like you and me are doing things for free. This podcast, my seminar, orange pilling the church. I literally received no fiat gains for that. I'm out there doing it for the goodness of my heart, because I'm trying to help people, and I realize that Bitcoin is what it is. And it's amazing. Bitcoiners will do things for free, where you don't find that in the real world very often.
I get asked that actually. I get 0 euros or sats or whatever for
Hmm.
content creation. I'm doing the podcast, I'm doing Max. I grew this year alone from like 400 followers to 6,500.
Beautiful.
I do so many tweets a day. Sometimes I
Yeah.
have a month with 2,000 tweets because of all the replies I'm doing, and I get zero sats and 0 euros from that, from nobody. And
Yeah.
I don't care. I do it because I love it. I love to talk about it. It's like I think if I don't do it, I have that energy in me and it does not come out. Like it will
Yeah.
boil inside of me and it will explode at some point. So,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm doing that. It gives me so much pleasure and joy, and it's amazing to have something that gives you so much joy and pleasure.
Yeah.
Um, Even though it's not related to money, even though it's not related to food, even though it's not related to sex, it just
Yeah.
gives you joy and pleasure
Yeah.
without the usual
Exactly.
things that give you joy and pleasure.
To me, what early on in Bitcoin for me, I was more of the libertarian. I was more anti-government, anti-banking. Like up here in Canada, we have limits for e-transfers, for deposits, withdrawals. Everything is centralized and controlled. If I wanted to send you $4,000 right now, I couldn't do it. My bank limits me to $3,000 a day e-transfers. It's my money, Robin. Why, if I want to send you $1 million, why shouldn't I be able to? Well, I put in the effort at work to earn the money. The bank is just there to cash my check. Originally it was. Now it's, if I went in there to get out $10,000 cash, I'd have to answer questions. Like that, that to me is actually, it gets my blood boiling. That irritates me, that I have to, be a grown man, earn my money, and then I have to go to a bank teller and tell him, I'm taking $10,000 out to buy guns or ammo, and then what? I have to answer for more questions. Like, this is my money. So that's what's, I kind of attracted me to Bitcoin. And then it just snowballed from there. I wanted to learn about the mining, so I bought some S9s, hooked them up, which are incredibly easy, and they're great for garage space heaters. Like, I have one running in my basement right now, an S9, and a couple out in my garage, keeping them all warm. Yeah, I do it at a loss because energy is so expensive, but the heat that I receive, to me, is like indispensable. If I can take my kids' mitts after a winter day and put them in front of the S9 and they heat my kids' gloves, that's like, hallelujah, Bitcoin.
Be,
So go
Bitcoin
ahead.
heating your gloves. That's great.
And I do. I actually have a drying rack above like the miner, and I put my kids' clothes when they get home from school. They'll be home in like half an hour. I put all the clothes out there, and the miner blows hot air underneath them, and it rises and dries them. To me, Bitcoin, it's going to change the world. You are either, you accept it now or you're going to accept it later, but Bitcoin will be everywhere. I imagine our home appliances will soon be mining. Our furnaces for our house, there'll be miners run off them, and you may not even know about it. The company that sells it, they may even put it in there and mine themselves and use your energy. It's the future is so bright for Bitcoin, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. And here at, I believe, the beginning of the S curve. Some people might think that the law of diminishing returns means that we're kind of at like the peak and it's going to wane for a little bit. But if you go around and ask 100 people anything about Bitcoin, and you'll realize that we are so early. And I post that quite a bit, like, because I do. I'm out there orange pilling quite a bit, and I'm talking to a lot of people. Like you say, I orange pilled my church. I went to church to try and find God, and I just couldn't find myself stopping from trying to tell them there that guys realize that we're all part of a manipulated system and whatnot. And fortunately, they were very open to the idea of Bitcoin. And I'm actually going Thursday with the VP of the church to finalize the wallet, because we did set up a Lightning arrangement through Phoenix. And I don't know if you know anything about the fees right now, but the fees on Bitcoin are through the roof.
Yeah,
So,
they are quite high, a little bit
so
higher
I
than
can't.
usual.
I've actually told my church that I'm just going to save up the Bitcoin and then I'll send it to you in a larger chunk once the fees are a little bit lower, which is a beautiful thing about Bitcoin. You can arrange things. You can, say, okay, I'll hold it here and then I'll move it when the fees are cheaper, right? I went down the hole with the fees too. Understanding what's going on there. Why are the fees going up? And to me, from what I understand, it's what's called a DDoS attack, which is a denial of service attack. They're actually spamming our network right now. If you look here at the bit feed, you can click on some of these transactions, and people are paying $2 to send 37 cents. I think it's the ordinals scam going on. They're just trying to congest our network to make it look unusable. But we know Bitcoin doesn't care.
They are basically paying the miners. They are paying for security.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what they are thinking. If they're actually people that try to DDoS Bitcoin now, uh,
Hmm.
if this actually is the case, I don't know what is their game plan, because they are just giving more financial energy to Bitcoin. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back one step. What you said when you said about the banks that you are not allowed to give me more than 3,000 euros because there's like a limit. Isn't it crazy that your money is basically your life's energy? Like you work for something, you get back money. So basically,
Hmm.
money is kind of time, kind of your life's energy.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, you're like, wait, there's an institution in our world that can control where I put my life's energy. How is this different from slavery?
It's not. We actually live in an open air prison, right? We're still slaves. The only chains that we wear now are debt, right? We live in a debt-based society. So all of us are burdened with debt. And it's a lot of debt. Like even for me in Canada, to own a home is, you're talking $1 million. Like to get something for a family, that's a lot of debt to take on, right? And then you have credit cards, and they'll finance anything. You could finance anything in Canada. There's a company that will send you financing, and then those are the chains that we put on, and the chains I'm trying, even myself, to break free of is debt. That's the new slavery, is debt.
Yeah, great. Where do you see when you see the Bitcoin standard evolving, when everybody's hopping on Bitcoin and everybody is on a complete Bitcoin standard? Where do you see the role of centralized planning of basically governments? Do you see changes? What changes do you see? What will change with government when we are fully adopted with Bitcoin?
Hmm. That's a tough question. That's a really tough question. To me, I think governments would be scaled back. You wouldn't have all these departments and departments of departments and all these staffers and this bloat. The government is bloated. It's incentivized to spend and bloat. I think once people realize Bitcoin is scarce and you cannot just print it, that governments will be a little more careful with their money. They'll become accountable because Bitcoin is an open source ledger. So we, the people, can see where the money's going. So I think governments will become much, much smaller, much more, localized, and they would actually tackle issues, and they would need to create value for the taxpayers. If they do not create value, they're not needed. That's the problem with governments today. They can print and pay and get no value. They're taking our debt, our money, and paying these departments, and we're getting no value for them, and they get to stay. Where in the Bitcoin standard, no value, no bueno, adios. You go.
I love that line so much. Great. No value, adios. um, Maybe for people that are into Bitcoin, but they are not running their miners and they're not running their own node. Why did you start with that, and would you recommend that to other people? Let's start with the miner, and like miner, I think is more grabbable for people, and also let's start with the miner. Why did you start the miner, and would you recommend doing that everybody?
uh, yeah, I started, like I said, in with the GPU miners. I did it because I just, for me, I need to know how something works. Like I'm a mechanic, I'm an industrial mechanic by trade. So I'm the type of, my job is to make sure a factory runs. Like I'm actually responsible for large robots that move large pieces of whatever product we're building. Right? I don't want to dox myself too much, but so I'm just genetically, I need to know what gears are turning, and why. So maybe not everybody will go down the same path as me, and you don't. It's not essential to run a miner. It is important to run a node so that you can verify your own transactions. Because if you don't run a node, you're relying on somebody else that is, right. And it you're not supposed to trust in Bitcoin, but when it comes to nodes, there's a little bit of trust, right? Because the Bitcoin goes from where you send it to your wallet, so you know that it worked, but you don't have record of it. You don't have any type of verifiability. Like I could pop up my node here and punch in one command, and within, it does take a few minutes, but it will tell me exactly down to the eighth decimal how many Bitcoins are in existence, right? So I know, and mine is hooked up to my wallet, my node. So the minute I hit send on my phone, within a few minutes, I get a notification here, and then I know that that Bitcoin is 100% Bitcoin. There's no way it's anything but that. To me, that verifiability is important. It may not be so important to other people, but like I say, on a fundamental level, I have to know how things work. Even the GPU miners, I can remember at one point I was stuck for hours, and the GPU wouldn't turn on, and it just wouldn't fire up. And I'm like, what is going on? And I lost sleep over it. And I took out my multimeter, and I had to test every part of the circuit until I found the broken connection. And it was actually just a power connection inside. The little tab was broken. You know, most people I find would just give up and throw it away. But I'm not that type. Like I have to dig deeper. And fortunately, I think Bitcoin has helped me become that way, right? Going down the rabbit hole has made me lift the veil on so many other things. So I think a node is important to run, and they're super simple to run. You know, I bought a computer from Best Buy for $140, a desktop computer, plugged it into my TV here, and you only need, I suggest a 2 terabyte hard drive, but a 1 terabyte will do for now. And all you do is a couple clicks, download Bitcoin Core from the internet, and within a few days, it needs to sync with the blockchain. So what it's doing is downloading every single transaction from the Genesis block, and then now you have a record of it at your house. So there's nobody can, you can't do that with gold. I have a friend that's a gold bug, and I'm always sending him pictures of like gold bars that are cracked open with like tungsten in the middle or something. Like you can scam with gold. You can't do that with anything but Bitcoin. To verify that it's 100% real, is an aspect I don't think people grasp. Like, to me, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's quite hard to verify. Like the gold debate is so interesting for me because they only have one good argument, and it's the track record. Like
Yeah.
goal is just so long there, but
Mhm.
everything else, it's just a lost debate by now. I
Is
actually got orange pilled a lot by those gold debates when I was looking into Bitcoin in 2020
yeah.
in 2020, and they opened my eyes to gold and Bitcoin. So I
Hmm.
was before only stocks, and an asset has to have an cash flow, otherwise it's not valuable. I come
Yeah.
from this Warren Buffett mindset, and this gold and Bitcoin debate actually opened my mind to, oh, there's another possibility out there.
Hmm.
And but it's so clear, like why
Yeah.
gold? It's like,
Like, I myself hold a bit of silver because I'm, like I said back, I'm a libertarian. So during COVID, I really realized, oh my gosh, like you need to have some systems in place to protect your family. You need to have a food storage. You need to have maybe some cash on hand, but you do also need to have precious metals. Like in an emergency situation, they do hold value, and you would be able to, you could possibly trade somebody for it. But to hold your life's energy in it is foolish. Like, it's been flat for forever, right? Like they said back in the day, it should, a bar of gold should, or 1 ounce of gold should buy a suit, and still to this day, it's done that. And to me, it's manipulated too. We all know that the paper market is vastly larger than the physical market. So it's been captured by centralized authorities, and it will never be released because of its weight, its properties. It's a heavy, dense metal. Like, good luck sending it across the ocean at lightning speed. You can't do that, right? That's where Bitcoin is superior. It's frictionless. You can send it to Zimbabwe. Well, it's expensive today because fees are high, but when they go back down, you can send it for nothing.
why did you
It's
choose Why did you choose silver over gold?
Uh, Again, it was back, my person that I worked with. He told me that gold's for kings and silver's for the people, right? Silver is like more of a currency. Uh, it's and it really, I just kind of like the look and the feel of it. And for me to give $1,000 and get a little speck of gold, I just don't see the value in it. For some reason, that's me because I get a nice heavy bar of silver for $300. To me, there's something about the weight of it that gives it value. I'm probably wrong, but it's just some. I have quirks. You follow me on Twitter. I'm odd.
Yeah, your memes are fire. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm look,
Sometimes I just have a way of relating everything to Bitcoin, and a way of just like some of these memes that I post. It's just me late at work at night. Like I say, I work midnight, so I'm just sitting there in the factory alone, and I'm just scrolling. I'm like, oh my god, that's just like Bitcoin. Here, hold on, click, 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 post, and apparently people can relate to it, right? Because they are blowing up.
yeah,
I myself, like, I started off 2 years ago with 300 followers, and I've grown the account to like 6,200.
yeah, you're doing great, man. You
Thank
actually
you,
crush it.
thank you.
I love it. But you also created a website called Bitday Cards. What is
Yes, yes.
that, and why did you start that one?
I mentioned earlier I have a cousin that's into Bitcoin. He's a one person I was able to orange pill, and he took on to it like crazy. He's stacked like crazy. He lives at home with his mom, so he's able to do that.
Yeah,
Um, I unfortunately am not in the same situation, but I'm trying as hard as him. We both just love Bitcoin. Like, I could just do Bitcoin all day. Like, I could listen to podcasts, read books, check my node, plug in my miners, just all day, every day Bitcoin. So I wanted to work in Bitcoin, but I'm not super technical. I'm not a financial guy. Like, I don't know, a bond yield curves like Preston Pish and them. Like, so I wanted to work in Bitcoin somehow, and seed phrases to me. Seed phrases, again, you could go down days and days of learning about seed phrases and what they are and where they come from, and what they do and how they do it. It's amazing. But you can literally gift somebody Bitcoin through 12 words, right? Like if I knew a seed phrase right on this podcast, I could just tell you 12 words. You could go on your computer, punch them in, and have access to that Bitcoin, right? That to me is another amazing feature. So that's what we tried to do. If you go on Bitday cards, we created a little character. His name's B-Rex. He's a little Tyrannosaurus, and he wants to teach you. There's a section that teaches you about Bitcoin and seed phrases. But we also designed these cards with a 12-word area for them and a little scenery. They're kind of themed. There's a cowboy one and an astronaut one, but it teaches you on the website through QR codes. You scan the QR code. It will take you to a section in our website where it teaches you to create a seed phrase. It teaches you how to load the seed phrase with Bitcoin, write the seed phrase in the card, gift it, mail it to whoever you want. To me, I like sending them to people that aren't orange pilled, and it kind of forces people to learn about Bitcoin, right? They have to scan the QR code. If they want their funds, it's great for birthdays. If they want their funds, they're going to have to learn how to interact with the Bitcoin network, which to me is like a forced orange pilling. And I haven't put as much energy into it as I'd like to, but it's starting to pick up traction, and we're focusing a little more on it. So thanks for asking about that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a really cool project. I checked it out right before our podcast, and I loved it. I have to check it out a little more in depth.
Yeah, it's
Um,
bitdaycards.com.
yeah, I you are now my 11th guest on the podcast, and I noticed a pattern. Uh, the guests till now all had kids. They all were fathers of kids. Most of them more than one or more than one, or sometimes even more than two.
Yeah,
Why do you think this is? Is there something about having kids and Bitcoin? Is this also tied to maybe to the Christianity, to the faith, and the conservative belief that Bitcoiners usually have? Do you see that? Do you have any thoughts about that?
for sure, for sure. It actually says in the Bible to God tells us to be fruitful and multiply. It's actually we are supposed to increase as a society. Our population is supposed to get bigger and bigger. I know the mainstream media doesn't want you to believe that. And again, Bitcoin has taken me down the rabbit hole of learning, can Earth sustain 8 billion people? And from the research I've done, it can easily. And if you listen to Elon Musk, he also advocates for a ever growing population. And I think the mainstream media is trying to push us an alternate narrative that maybe we're using too much and too much energy. All that stuff is foolish. As a society, your energy production and your population should be increasing. Like we are becoming more sophisticated as a species. Why would we not become more energy efficient, create bigger sources of energy so we can maybe get off this planet, become an interplanetary species, right? So kicking back to your original question is I think Bitcoiners realize this, and Bitcoin brings you abundance and it brings you security, financial security. And when you aren't stressed about money, then you can focus on other things like creating a family, you know, and working less and spending time with your wife. And and that is a gift of Bitcoin, a gift of scarcity. And I think that's what's going on with Bitcoiners and Christianity. Like we said earlier on, they both kind of intersect. They kind of have similarities. So I'm speaking to both of them, and that's why I think we have a lot. Me myself, I have four under 12, right? And I love it. It's amazing. It's a gift from God to be able to watch a child grow, and all my kids know Bitcoin. They know I'm on this podcast today. Lucas, Sophia, Ethan, and Cole wanted me to name drop them. So there you go. And they all have wallets. They all get paid in Bitcoin. They don't understand Bitcoin on a technical level, but they know about its scarcity. They know about government corruption. They know about money printing at 5 years old, 6 years old. I'm trying to raise a different generation and break chains, right? And that's a beautiful gift of Bitcoin. One of the best gifts of Bitcoin is being able to raise a family.
That's beautiful, man. What do
Mhm.
you think is will be different about uh, your kids? They or your kids representing Bitcoiner generation that they are living in the Bitcoin world, like they are raised to be Bitcoiners. What are they having different from people that were born in 1971? Right in
Mhm.
the fiat era. My father was born in exactly 1971.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. They will understand, I think, wastefulness. Like as our generation or their generation, they're very wasteful. And I try and teach my kids about scarcity, about once you do something, you can't undo it. So you need to be mindful and think about what you're doing. Be deliberate in your actions, because once you hit send on Bitcoin, there's no unsend, right? So you need to double check, cross reference, make sure the address is correct, make sure you know who you're sending to. I think it will teach my kids to be diligent, to be mindful of wastefulness, and also it, it helps teach them to be caring and loving individuals, because Bitcoin is a system of love. It is a network of people that care for each other and that want to see a better world, and that's why I want my kids to be part of that.
My third podcast actually, the guest, his tagline was Bitcoin is a system of love. And I actually heard it for with him the first time and I I love it since
Yeah,
ever since then. I it comes back to truth, to trust, to believing and cheering for each other.
yeah,
It's a wonderful system. I love it.
exactly. Me too. There's no. I have yet to find a negative point about it, except for this DDoS attack with the fees getting incredibly high. But for me, I haven't paid a single one. Like I know how to circumvent that. This is my exchange. It doesn't charge me any fees to cold store. So I haven't been affected by these fees. To me, the only people affected by this short-term fee issue are day traders and degens that are looking to turn a quick buck off of somebody. Like I don't trade Bitcoin. Like that's the first thing people when I try and orange people, they're like, "Oh, did you sell? Do you buy? Do you buy and sell? Do you sell buy?" I'm like, "No, I just buy it and I hold on to it and I'm never letting it go." Like any Bitcoin I buy is gonna go to my children likely. Like I don't like if it did get to like hyper Bitcoinization, I might peel a little bit off to work even less than I do. But Bitcoin teaches you to think generationally, not yearly, daily, monthly charts. I'm not interested in that. That to me is just stressful. It's gambling. It is what it is, and I'm not a gambler. I work way too hard to gamble.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point to end it with. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest asked the next guest a question, and the previous guest does not know who's the next guest is. And the question from the previous guest to you, without knowing that you are you,
I like
was
this.
how many months of fiat currency are you currently holding and why?
How many months? Zero. I hold as little fiat as possible. Maybe. Do you want an actual number? Like I might have $1,000 cash at all times,
Oh, yeah.
just in to cover like groceries, short term stuff. Anything else goes to Bitcoin. And if I if 1,000 doesn't cover me, then I will convert back. But then I restack, right? But I'm 99% Bitcoin.
Uh,
Yeah.
that that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Um,
it's so easy to convert. Like my exchange does it instantly, and then it can e-transfer to my bank account. And the longest I've ever waited is half an hour. So why would I ever sit and hold fiat and wake up and watch Bitcoin has gone up 10%? and I was sitting there on what, $5,000. You know the gains you just missed, right? Like, and we know historically, if you don't get in on Bitcoin today, it could be gone, right? These people are sitting back waiting for prices. Good luck. Like, Bitcoin will go up 10% and never come back down. We may never see $36,000 again. So what am I going to do? That's, to me, becomes like a trading thing again, trying to time it. Me, when I get paid, boom, DCA instantly. And then I'm trying to like squeeze every dollar in I can. I'm like looking at my wife. I'm like, oh, we don't need to eat out tonight, do we? And as soon as she says, no, we got some at home, bang, $50 a Bitcoin. Gone to cold storage.
I love that. Um, for the end, where can people find you? Where do you want to point them to? Where can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Twitter is my main source. If you want to communicate with me, you send me a DM. You know yourself on Twitter, I'm very active. I try and respond to everybody, even people that are negative. I will try and help them. I don't get angry with people and like retaliate. So if I get someone that's like anti-Bitcoin, I had this morning telling me that it's a Ponzi scheme. I get a little kind of curt with them, but I try and realize that, hey, that could be somebody that's one step away from Bitcoin. So I need to be the leader, the pillar, and try and use words to bring them in instead of make them hate maxis even more. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can DM me on Twitter. Uh, you can go to my website, bitdaycards.com. You can email me through there. And I will respond if you want to talk. If you want to get a copy of my PDF, it's free. I will send you it. It's 4 MB. You can peruse it. You can criticize me. I think your previous guest, I sent it to him and he criticized it and we talked on the phone, and I'm open to constructive criticism. So if you want to get a hold of me, reach out to me on Twitter.
Oh, amazing. I loved having you on.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much.